Welcome to episode 76, how to think about the value of a coaching relationship. Now, I'm a big fan of entrepreneur, author and business/marketing thought leader Seth Godin. His blog is one of the most popular in the world. David, you recently sent me one of his blog posts that really drives the message home that all high performers and people who want to become high performers need a coach. In our method of business consulting, we recommend wearing 8 different hats to help improve a business, with a critical component or a critical hat being the role of a coach. You can listen to more about these 8 hats in episode 73 of Everything Business Consulting. I'm going to read a few excerpts from Seth's blog, or his recent one that David sent me, and get you, David, to discuss your experiences and how this relates to business consulting. This article, this blog, is called A Coaching Paradox, and it starts like this. At the top tier of just about any sort of endeavor, you'll find that the performers have coaches. Pianists, orators, and athletes all have coaches. In fact, it would be weird if we heard of someone on stage or on the field who didn't have one. And yet, in the world of business, they are seen as the exception. David, what have you seen?
Well, exactly what you're alluding to here. Firstly, that all successful sports people have a coach. And things like golf. I've heard my father-in-law plays a lot of golf and everything, and he has a coach because he can't see his backswing, which I've heard quite often. And if you think about something like that, and when it comes to swimming or running or snowboarding, I see New Zealand has done very well in snowboarding in the Olympics we've just had. You need to have somebody else there who can look at what you're doing and give you a second opinion. They say that 2 heads are better than 1, and they always are, and it doesn't matter what it is, sports or business or anything at all. You need somebody else who can come in and give a second opinion or give advice on what you're doing, and it helps if that person is experienced in that particular, whatever that particular occupation or sport is. So it's really important, and especially in what we do as business consultants, because most people go into business and they have had no training to start a business, and they've just kind of bumbled along, and they've sort of learned as they've moved along, but sometimes it's just too late. And they don't know enough, or too much damage has been done, so they need somebody else to come in and help them with additional advice.
Like you were talking about, David, I think the role of a coach, having the ability to see an external perspective that the person in the situation can't see. Maybe they're too engrossed in what they're doing, or they're too stressed, or just too involved to actually see the bigger picture. And I think that's a small part of the larger role of a coach. Now, carry on with this passage. Part of the reason is that work feels like an extension of something we've been doing our whole lives. Figure skating isn't like school, but showing up at work seems to be. I've got this as a badge of honor. David, when someone in business thinks, I've got this, or I can do this myself, is that their ego getting in the way?
Absolutely. The number of people that I've worked with that I've had to break down that ego barrier before I can start to talk to the real person. You could see it like an onion, where you're peeling off all the layers to get to the piece in the middle. There's a good way to kind of think about it. But yes, you once you can get through the ego, get through the belief that they know everything. And what's that other? There's another good saying, which was I can't think of the author of the book, but he said when you start learning when you get to the thought process that you don't know everything or something like that. It was the I can't think of what it was, but anyway.
And how do you go about breaking down the ego?
By asking them questions and using the ConsultX system, and by the more you ask questions, the more they tell you, the more comfortable they feel, the more they don't feel threatened by you, and the more that they're willing to talk about, and then they start to realise that they don't know everything. That's that saying. Good clients for us are people who realise that they don't know everything.
And Seth carries on, and part of the reason is that a few coaches have made claims that stretch belief, and we're not actually sure what they do. David, how do you communicate what you'll actually do to help a client?
Well, we kind of stay away from talking about ourselves, and we keep the conversation on them, because we want them to realise that they've got problems that they have not been able to solve. And that's really important that we do that. Otherwise, we will bring up their ego again, and they will be defending the things that they think they know that they don't know, and it won't give us the opportunity to basically tell them or to advise them what we do. But there's another old saying, and that is, you need to have a problem, and they need to admit that there's a problem and they're having a problem before you could even start talking about what you do and how you would help them.
And I think this next passage, continuing on, leads on to what you're just saying very nicely. It turns out that the people with the potential to benefit the most from a coach are often the most hesitant, precisely because of what coaching involves. Talking about our challenges, setting goals, acknowledging that we can get better, eagerly seeking responsibility. Is there a way of breaking through that hesitancy and then getting the client to allow themselves to be coached?
Some prospects who haven't become a client yet, they naturally know, they've tried, they've got to the end of the road, and they're very, very easy to get them on board, because they understand that they need help and they realise that two heads are better than one, all those sorts of things. But business owners are different to sports people. Sports people know that they need a coach, and they know that they need somebody who knows more than they know, or who has coached another sports person and got good results for them. But business owners are a little bit different than that. And as I said, you need to peel back the onions, and you need to be talking to the actual real person, not the ego, not the bravado, not the I think I know everything, I've been here for 20 years, I know everything about this business. Not that kind of discussion. They need to realise that they don't know what they don't know, because they haven't got what they want. And they've been going for 20 years, and it's just been a 20-year struggle. They might have paid the bills, they might have paid the mortgage and things like that, but they might be getting on in age, and they need to consider selling the business or retiring, but the business isn't worth anything. So,
but that what you just said about focusing really on what they want, if they haven't achieved that, to be a very motivating part of a coaching relationship, and you can use that to be able to break the hesitancy and get someone to engage in a coaching relationship. If you can get a client or a potential client to be laser focused. Now, you've got an example, David, I think, of when you were signed up to the Motivation International,
SMI, Success Motivation International,
and you were pushed really, really hard to join up so you could chase your goals. You want to talk to that?
Yes, I met a particularly talented lady who was an SMI representative, and she asked me a whole lot of questions, and she was taking notes as she was going along. You know, are you happy with what you got? What's your 5-year goal? What's your 10-year goal? Ask you all these questions, and I told her all of these things, and I had big goals. I wanted to build $100 million company, and I wanted to sell it for a lot of money and everything. And she wrote all these things down, and then she says, well, I reckon you should become a member of SMI, Success Motivation International. You should buy all of our courses, and you should put yourself through these courses so that you can do that. And I said, well, how much is that going to cost? And she said $3,800. No, $3,800. Oh, I don't think I can afford that. And she said, but David, you said you were turning over $1 million a month, and you out of that $1 million a month, you were making about $50,000, 5%, $50,000 profit. And I've got a program here which will deliver to you all of the things that you want to get out of life, and you're telling me that $3,800 is too expensive. Like, I felt about this big. Beep, crawled away, you know, and I bought it, obviously, and because what I was saying was ridiculous. It was just absolutely ridiculous when I wind it back, and I ended up becoming, in a couple of years, the SMI Client of the Year, and all of my management team at my company I put on SMI, which is about 11 people, I think, from memory. And we just rocketed, absolutely rocketed, and we got to $100 million, and then Coca-Cola came along and bought us out. But the point is that she had to get through to the core of David before she could actually make that sale, which is really pathetic when you think about it. $3,800.
But when she found out exactly what you wanted,
yes,
she could use that to engage you in. Was it coaching, or was it something a little bit different?
It is coaching. But there's lessons. You do lessons, and you start using their systems for goal setting, systems for breaking goals down into action steps, and it's the old how do you eat an elephant, 1 teaspoon at a time kind of thing. But it was you were involved in a very positive and motivated group of people. I think in Auckland there was about 100 from memory, and we used to go away for weekends, and the guy that owned the license for New Zealand was very, very powerful and motivating. It's a shame he died of cancer at 41. It's so sad. Yeah, Ian, his name was. And so it was a really good organisation, and that's what you can build through what we're doing here. Like there's no reason why you can't look at Drury. We were talking about in the last podcast. In Drury, there's no reason why you can't get 20 people out of Drury and put them together into a weekly or bi-weekly breakfast club or dinner club or something, and each of them can have turns at talking. You could introduce Toastmasters into them, all sorts of things. Like if you could get 10 to 20 clients out of Drury, which you could, you'd be sort of pulling anything between about $20,000 and $30,000 a month out of that little tiny weeny town that, when you look at it on a map, it's like a pinhead. Well, it's not even a pinhead; it's a dot. It's like a full stop. So once you can break through to them, there's all sorts of things that you can do, and all of that's in the training, isn't it? We talk about that quite comprehensively.
So then, David, it's pretty obvious that all top performers have coaches. You've even given us an example of when you really accelerated and were performing at the top of your game. So why wouldn't a professional business person have a coach?
Exactly. I started my business in 1982. By 1992, just 10 years later, we were doing 5 million. Then I went into SMI. From 1992 to 2002, I went from 5 million to 100 million. Wow. And so big that Coca-Cola wanted to buy us out because we were a pain in the neck to them. So why wouldn't they? Exactly, because there's only positive benefits are going to come out of it. Nothing negative. Only positivity, and and positive results are going to materialize.
Well, it's fairly clear from today's discussion that anyone who wants to perform at a high level and anyone who wants to be the best that they can be, whether it's in business or otherwise, they need a coach. But undoubtedly, there is some kind of resistance or even a misunderstanding about what coaches do. So coming from this angle we've discussed today, do you know of any top performing athletes without a coach? Do you know of any singers who lack a voice coach? Do you want to get where you want to go? That is a really compelling angle. To all of our listeners and watchers, we'd love to know how you would approach this and if you have any questions around business consulting or advisory. For all of the show notes on this episode, visit consultx.com/episode 76 and please leave a review on your favorite listening platform. It really helps us to reach more people. And finally, don't forget you can reach out to us and request a topic for the show or have your business consulting questions answered.
You've been listening to Everything Business Consulting with David Thexton and Julius Broom.